beaming from Pacific Junction Hotel to Earth.
Hello, Kat.
Hi there.
I have a quick question actually before we get going, if that's okay. You really like the movie Signs?
Yeah, I do.
Me too. I thought I was like a minority. I get a lot of flack for it. A lot of people like the other M. Night stuff.
Yeah. You know, this is the hill that I will die on. I think it's one of his best. I think it's like perfect, basically. Maybe minus the ending, but yeah, it's a great movie.
But there's just these little touches that he throws. I mean, we're off topic now, but there's these little touches that he throws in there, like just the fact that like when Mel Gibson's putting on his jacket or something, and you see the outline of the cross that's like kind of been hanging on the wall, and it's like been faded over time, but he removed the cross, so you just get that like faded thing, and it's just like that symbolizes like his lack of faith as much as anything else. It's a really well done movie.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about it is that he manages the balance where things are really, really, really tense and then something funny happens to release the tension so well. There's all these little moments like that. So, yeah, big fan.
All right. Okay, good. I'm not alone. So we'll high five.
No, you are not.
Okay. We will high five at the end of this for Signs. So.
Yeah, let's go.
Yo, welcome to my Summer Lair. I'm your host, Sammy Younan, and today I'm ecstatic to be joined by Kat Rosenfield. She and a certain dude named Stan Lee just put out a book called A Trick of Light, and we're going to get into all this good stuff. But you've actually had a really good September, because not just Trick of Light with Stan Lee came out, but you also started writing for EW.
I've actually been a recapper at EW for a few years now, I want to say. But I am very, very happy to be back for the maybe fourth season in a row, recapping American Horror Story, which is one of my favorite fall series. So, yes, I am having a nice, busy, wonderful fall.
So I want to understand, like, what is the purpose of, like, a recap page or like doing a recap? Is it like Talking Dead, like where you talk to some of the people, or like how does it work? What's the point of it?
Yeah, I know. It's for people who watch the show, but also want to talk about the show, want to read about what happened in the show. There's a little bit of analysis involved in it sometimes, or, you know, if it's a Ryan Murphy series, usually maybe a little less analysis and a little more joking around about how ridiculous what's happening on screen is.
Especially for a show like this.
Yeah, seriously. But it's very much for the fans. I don't think that people read recaps because they want to find out what happened because they didn't watch the show and they need to be caught up. I guess maybe some do. But I think that most of the people who read recaps read them because they watch the show and they love the show and they want to revisit it from as many different angles as possible. It's just part of the whole fan experience.
And you can do that because it's a weekly show, right? It's not like the Netflix thing where like they just dump it all. Here's like 10 episodes and then go have a good time.
Right. Well, you know, it's funny when Netflix dumps a show all at once, EW does something called a binge recap, which is basically you watch all of the episodes and you write them all up in a very, very short amount of time. It's a lot of work.
I could imagine. Yeah, so this is much nicer now, just week by week.
Yeah, a little bit more manageable.
So we've already chronicled the fact that you're in the room with EW, but you also ended up in a room with Stan Lee for the book A Trick of Light. So how do you end up in a room with Stan Lee, just hanging out?
Well, I mean, this was a great kind of saga of a project coming together. This is an all-new superhero universe and a new superhero origin story. And the origin story of the origin story is really cool. It all began with Stan and Luke Lieberman, who met Stan back when he was in college. They had this long-standing mentorship over the course of more than a decade. And they'd always wanted to collaborate together on something. Not sure what at the time. And then a few years ago, they sort of returned to the idea of working together and settled on doing something very centered in digital culture. You know, you hear Stan in the beginning of the Trick of Light audiobook that released in June saying, what is more real, a world we're born into or one we create ourselves? And that was the kind of what-if question that spawned the entire premise of A Trick of Light, this idea that the internet has allowed us to create new realities and to kind of curate those realities and our identities within them. So that was the genesis of the idea, which began several years ago, and Stan and Luke started to sort of noodle on it. Ryan Silbert, a filmmaker from New York, got involved. And then once they had decided that they wanted this to be a long-form story, not a comic book, not a TV series, but a novel, they brought me on board to write. So that was where I came in.
How does it work then when you have four people? Like, you're a good writer, Stan Lee's a good writer. Like, how are you balancing story inputs, ideas, characters, where this is all going? How do you make it seem like seamless? Like, when you're baking a cake, you start off with eggs and flour, and I don't know what else goes into baking a cake, but then eventually those ingredients become all seamless, and it becomes a tasty cake. So how did you make a tasty cake with four individuals like that?
Seamless is the word, and it just kind of goes to show what kind of amazing things can happen when you have four really creative and really different people all, contributing to a project, bouncing ideas off of each other. This was basically like storytelling as a team sport, which was so much fun. And of course, we had the most experienced storyteller of all time sort of leading up this team, helping to guide us through the process. So without, kind of going into the nitty-gritty, like really pulling back the curtain on what that was like, which I think kind of, ruins the magic of it a little bit. Basically, we all contributed ideas. We spent a lot of time talking about this. We created this extensive roadmap, not just for where this story was going, but for what kind of a universe this is, who these characters are. And then it coalesced into our very first story, where you meet Cameron, you meet Mia, the characters who have their first adventure together in A Trick of Light. Yeah,
so it's interesting because Stan Lee, of course, is known for many things, co-creating the Marvel Universe with many collaborators. But one of the primary characters he's kind of synonymous with is Spider-Man. It's like a 15-year-old kind of losery type kid who obviously gets bitten by a radioactive spider, and then he goes and ends up with Mary Jane, and everything's amazing. But he kind of goes full circle with the creation of Cameron, because it's another like slightly nerdish youth. Now it's a little bit more updated. It's not the chemistry set anymore. Now he's a YouTube star, or trying to be a YouTube star, and he gets hit by lightning and basically becomes like another superhero. So it's kind of neat that Stan Lee's work got to go full circle in a weird way.
Yeah, what's great about, I think, what makes this such a classic Stan Lee story is that you see those echoes in Cameron of Peter Parker and of Tony Stark and of somebody like the Hulk. All of these heroes struggle with identity, and that's really what this story is about. When you wear the mask, when you're not wearing the mask, which of these is the real you?
Yeah.
So with Cameron, this is taking place in a digital world. The masks we wear online are not necessarily physical. We have these avatars that represent us in cyberspace. But, similarly, you come up against these questions of who am I in this space? Is this the real me? Are the people I'm interacting with knowing me, understanding me? And are they real? Because when you're on the internet, things can get a little fuzzy that way.
Yeah, and it's also at a time, the main character, Cameron, he's 17, he's graduating high school. He actually has his high school graduation in the story. Hopefully that's not a spoiler alert. But he's at the end of high school, basically, and he also meets a really pretty girl who is also 17, yeah. And so they're also at that stage of life where, like, they're supposed to kind of be going off to college and solidifying their identity a little bit more, but it's still malleable at that point because you're trying to figure out what you want to do at college, who you want to be when you grow up, basically. And so the characters are at a really pivotal time, not just in terms of their online identities, but their offline identities as well. So it's kind of interesting tension between the two.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that that's reflective, really, of how it is for kids right now, who are navigating both meat space and digital space and trying to find a way to make them cohere.
So why don't you give us like an elevator pitch? Have you gotten better at it? Because there's a lot that goes on in this book. So even I had a hard time, like, because friends would be asking me, like, how's that new Stan Lee book? I'm like, there's like so much going on. I don't know how to like boil it down to like this happens. So do you have an elevator pitch, or do you have a way of summarizing kind of what happens? Because there's a crazy amount that goes on in this.
I mean, my pitch for this book is 100% spoiler-free, which is, that you have two young people, Cameron and Mia, who both have extraordinary gifts. and they come together, and their connection is powerful enough to either save the world or to destroy it. So high stakes, just like any classic Stan Lee story. And you've got young people dealing with issues of identity, of connection. You know, you have the intergalactic threat element. And I should stop talking now because I'm going to end up spoiling something. So let's cut it there.
Okay. You're really good. Yeah, that was pretty, you did a good job there. That was really solid.
Thank you.
And the title, of course, is A Trick of Light. And you've already alluded to this a little bit, but I'll say it because it just happens within the first chapter, first two chapters, basically. But the kid Cameron that we've been talking about, he gets his superpowers from a bolt of lightning. So is the title A Trick of Light? Is that about like how he kind of got his superpowers, or is it kind of what you've been also talking about, which is the internet and how it's kind of let us down a little bit? How it was marketed to us as this great thing, and we would be able to have all this wisdom and knowledge and like meet people and hang out. And then now it's just like this receptacle for like cancel culture and porn, basically.
Oh God, that's a little bit bleak. I mean, I still think that the internet is great in a lot of ways. But to return to the question of the title, yeah, you know, it does absolutely work on multiple different levels. There's a lot going on there. But thematically, when we talk about A Trick of Light, we're talking about illusion, distraction, and one of the things that really struck Stan as this concept was coming together, that, you know, we used to look up at the stars for answers, and now we're looking down into the palms of our hands at our phones all the time. And, you know, that's drawing us sometimes away from what matters. You know, everything that happens on the internet is, in that respect, a trick of light.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. And Stan, I guess, remained curious. He observed culture. I mean, like, you see it the way the early Marvel stuff was, the way he reflected culture. And I guess he always had a way of, like, even though he created a lot of stuff and sculpted our culture a lot, he seemed to have a way of stepping back as well and just kind of observing. Is that kind of more accurate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was always observing and always asking questions. And, you know, one of the things that made this project special was that, you know, he had gone from observing the nascence of the internet and all of the promise that it had to connect and inspire us, and then to see the ways that it had failed to fulfill that promise, you know, as we were coming into 2016, 2017, 2018. You know, the things were not as advertised on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Was the original premise for it to become an audiobook, or was it always supposed to become like a novel? Or like you said, you guys didn't want to do a comic book initially, so you moved away from that medium. But what was the first medium that you were looking to do it for?
So this was originally conceived as an audiobook original and was released on Audible in June. And the thing that was great about this and what drew Stan to that idea was that, I mean, for one thing, it was a medium that he had never worked in before. And I mean, by that point in his life, finding a medium that Stan had not worked in was a phenomenal thing. Mm-hmm. But the other thing was that this is a very contemporary story. You know, it's very immersed in digital culture, in youth culture, in, you know, life as affected by the internet. But an audiobook is a return to the most original, essential, elemental form of storytelling, you know, to have one human voice telling you a story. And that was appealing, you know, for all of us as creators, that we were combining this incredibly digital premise with something sort of ancient, people sitting around a campfire passing down stories orally. And also it reminded Stan of the radio plays that he used to listen to in his youth, so that was exciting to him.
Yeah, that is cool. This might be a dumb question, but is there a big difference between like setting up and writing an audio play or teleplay and then writing a novel? Is it very similar?
For me, as a writer, this was, apart from the sort of team element and some sort of like minor technical things where, you know, you're considering that the story is going to be read aloud, so how you construct it can change a little bit depending on if you, like, you can't rely on visual cues if you're, for instance, you know, creating a sort of like a scripted scene where you've got people exchanging things. You know, if somebody's reading that aloud, you have to consider how it conveys, how the information conveys. But the actual, the writing of the audiobook manuscript, it was just telling a story, the same way that I've done in my previous work. Then when it came time to release the print edition, we were able to go back and be a little more expansive in places where we had to, to be more mindful of the fact that Yara Shahidi, our wonderful reader, was going to be reading the story aloud. We were able to, add bonus material, add new chapters, flesh out scenes in a way that wouldn't have worked so well for, a voice reading, but that work well when you're reading it on the page.
And is this something we can expect more of? Like, this is the Alliance's universe. That's something that's real, and we can expect more stuff? Because obviously Stan, unfortunately, passed away about a year ago.
Right. Well, we were so lucky to finish this project while he was still with us. We got to see, how excited he was about the story that we were all telling together. And, because so much work took place before he passed to flesh out this universe, to really bring these characters to life, we have this great roadmap, and there is indeed going to be a sequel, which I will also be a part of the writing process for. So we don't have further details on that, but it's happening, and people should keep an eye out for it.
Nice. It's amazing the way you describe working with Stan. Like, he was excited that this book was coming out, or this project was coming out. Like, it's still a thrill for him. Like you said, he's worked in all these different mediums. He's done mega movies, like the cameos, all these things. And it's still a thrill for him to kind of see something new kind of come out into this world, or just about to come out in this world. It must be really infectious.
Yeah, I mean, his excitement and his enthusiasm, like, it's impossible to work with him and not get kind of infected by it. It really was contagious. And, knowing and seeing how excited he was about this project, now that it's come fully to fruition and the audiobook is in the world and the print book is in the world, it really feels like he's still present in this moment. The excitement surrounding it is so much, like he feels like he's there.
Mm-hmm. When I was summarizing the internet, he said there was a very bleak summarization of the internet. Like, so you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but like, you were able to have, I guess, balance is the right word in terms of how you approach the internet, whether from the way that it was initially promised to us to the way it is now. You can see both things, good things and bad things with the internet.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just think about how many amazing dog videos you've seen online that you would never have seen if not for the internet. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff on the internet. It's unfortunate that because we're all now communicating with these screens as an intermediary, that's changed the way we connect with each other. And this is something that we, try to explore in the novel, that the internet has changed human communication and how we relate to each other in ways that we've only just started to reckon with, and I don't think that anybody fully understands yet. It's going to be a while before we really figure out what this has done to us and what to do about it, how to kind of make it work as a communication tool. But in the meantime, it's not all bad.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I agree with you on that. I think sometimes too, one of the things is, like, with the internet, the worst parts of it seem a little bit louder, like the way the angrier voices and things like that, because it's the dog videos don't speak as loudly, if that makes more sense.
Right. I mean, outrage travels online so much faster than any other emotion. And I think the question is that because of the internet, or is that because of the people on the internet? It's unfortunate that the internet provides an outlet in a lot of cases for human beings to kind of indulge their worst impulses. But I mean, it's an ongoing debate, I think. Is that the fault of the tool, or is it the fault of the people using it?
Yeah, and this kind of picks up what you're saying, like when you're talking about Stan Lee and secret identities and people using, like, going online as an avatar and having a secret identity online. But Stan Lee didn't just create a lot of superheroes, he also created a lot of supervillains. And I think people kind of forget that. They always kind of just wrap up his legacies, like he created like Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and all these really, really noble things. But he also created some evil people too, though, obviously, because the superheroes need to fight something. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to as well. Like, there is the internet is basically like a universe where there's superheroes and supervillains.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all complex. We all have light and dark inside of us, which I think is not a Stan Lee line, but a Harry Potter line. But I'm just gonna go with it, mixing my franchises a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what's great about Stan's characters, including his villains, is that they're complicated. They're human, and I think one of the things that we sought to do in this book was to tell a story where everybody is relatable. Everybody has something about them that feels human, even the characters who aren't necessarily human beings.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a better way to put it, because I think that's the tension sometimes is going on, especially with social media, where it's just the ability of sometimes the online experiences to dehumanize us, right? So you just see groups or people as like a monolith, like Trump voters or something. Like they just all like some sort of Borg hive mind. There you go. I'm mixing up the franchises like you. So it's like it's just kind of like one large like blob, but it's not like what you're saying is the opposite, which is that everyone is actually an individual, but we sometimes, especially online, kind of overlook that.
Yeah, we do. And it's one of those challenges, one of those things about how we communicate online that I think, people are eventually going to have to reckon with, and hopefully we'll come out in a better place on the other side.
Mm-hmm. It's always weird because it's like, I existed in a time before the internet. I'm a little older than you, but I existed in a time before the internet, and to say something innocuous, like I like a lot of war movies, but I didn't enjoy Hurt Locker, would normally in the 80s and 90s would have been a pretty like whatever statement, and people like, yeah, I'd like the movie or didn't like the movie or whatever. But now it's like this weird thing where this one person will come out and just like go way over the top and like, well, you didn't like it because it's a women director and you don't like women direct. And I'm like, where did all that come from? Like, it's a weird thing that people feel comfortable just kind of jumping instead of like just going to obvious. We're like, well, did you see Saving Private Ryan? That was a good movie. Or like other recommendations. It's just this weird little bit of logic or lack of logic, I guess, to be able to just jump and make these weird conclusions.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I think that what you're talking about is a lack of charity, which I think is one of those things that happens when you have a bunch of people who are removed from each other by screens and also possibly by thousands of miles and lots of different life experiences, where people are disinclined to give each other a little grace. But I'm also not sure that I'm actually as young as you think I am, because I definitely was in high school before the internet became a thing that was available. So I definitely do remember a time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though.
Online.
Yeah. But you've been kind of I don't know what the right word is then, based on what we've been talking about. You've been either kind of pushing back or kind of critical of like cancel culture, for example. That's some of the things you've been writing about or been talking about in the last little while. Is that the right word?
I mean, cancel culture is an interesting phrase that I think is still poorly defined.
How you were defining it?
I don't know. I actually am about to write about this, and I'm still sort of organizing my thoughts on it. So I don't want to necessarily talk about it too much because I'm going to be putting pen to paper soon, and like a lot of writers, I express myself better when I've had a chance to kind of work through things that way. But I think, and it goes back to what we've been talking about and, what some of the themes in A Trick of Light are, that the internet, does make it easy to dehumanize people. And it's changed the way that, for instance, an offensive comment is received. Right now, if you made a dumb joke, a bad joke at a party 10 years ago, there may be somebody who remembers it vaguely. One or two people maybe remember it and remember that it was embarrassing, but it's not right there. It's sort of disappeared down the memory hole. And that was life before the internet. Now you have an offensive tweet written 10 years ago that people are reading and receiving and responding to as though you wrote it yesterday. And that does things, obviously, to the way that people communicate, to the way that people respond. And it makes it difficult to deal with, especially when it's happening on this enormous scale. You have potentially millions of people, and you saw this in, for instance, what happened to Justine Sacco, who tried to make a joke lampooning her own white privilege.
The AIDS joke.
It didn't land. Yeah, I mean, it didn't land. She didn't construct it well, and because of this confluence of factors, including the fact that she was on an airplane, it became like this party online of people just savaging her and getting so excited for her impending destruction.
Mm-hmm. Just for anybody that doesn't know, she was a woman and she was traveling to Africa, and she said something to the effect of, I hope I don't get AIDS when I go to Africa, but just kidding, it won't happen because I'm white, basically. And then she got on an airplane and she didn't have Wi-Fi. So for the whole time she was traveling, she was getting savaged for being insensitive and being racist, or whatever number of crimes you take from that interpretation. Anyways, continue.
Oh, I mean, I was just going to say, when you talk about cancel culture, like that's a great example, I think, of, you have all of these things, all of these elements combining to create a really toxic situation that's ultimately, I think, bad for everyone involved, and not based on any kind of an authentic understanding of what was being said there. So, yeah, I mean, something that I have enjoyed exploring in not just this book, but in my work as a journalist is, the question of how the internet is kind of negatively impacting our communication in this way, and making it so that it's a lot harder to make a mistake because it seems like everything is happening in public. There's always somebody there with a phone to film you or to make a record of it. There's always somebody there to screen cap you. And this is one of these things where a few people doing this can essentially ruin the culture for everyone. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we have to still reckon with.
Yeah, it's almost like we've opted for that instead of grace.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it.
Is it hard, or hard may not be the right word, but do you find it difficult to transition from like writing fiction like A Trick of Light to, like you said, you got to figure out your thoughts now for nonfiction, and if you're going to write about cancel culture or some other topic, you have to sit and kind of organize your thoughts and stuff like that. Do you find those transitions between the nonfiction and the fiction difficult, or is it smooth, or how do you find it?
I mean, at this point, I've been doing this for so long. It's a slightly different writing muscle, basically. Mm-hmm. But it's I'm trying to think. I mean, it's sort of like if you do two different kinds of exercise and you like and enjoy them both. Yeah, it's not. I don't know that I would say that it's a seamless transition, but it's just different.
Well, speaking of exercise, though, you also kind of active on Twitter for doing all the yoga. You teach some of the classes, you do some of the poses and things like that. Did you do any? Did you do any yoga or talk to Stan Lee about yoga?
No, yoga did not come up in the process of writing this book. Although it was what I would do at the end of a long day of writing to kind of, decompress a little. Mm-hmm.
Does something like yoga help you with your, organize your thoughts? Like the way that some people would sometimes go for a walk or something like that. Does that work for you that way?
Actually, what I really like about yoga as a counterpoint to writing, which obviously is a very cerebral occupation where you are kind of rattling around in your own head all day and just thinking and thinking all the time. With yoga, all you are thinking about is the movement of your body and the connection of your breath to that movement. There's really no space if you're doing it right and if you're staying present for your mind to kind of wander off in the direction of whatever project you're working on or your to-do list. And I'm, not always the most successful at that, especially if we come into a moment where you're supposed to be lying there meditating, and sometimes I start thinking about other things. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm still a work in progress, my meditation practice. Mm-hmm. But what I like about yoga is that it forces me to get out of writing mode and to just occupy a present moment where I'm not trying to construct a narrative or anything else like that for a little while.
Do you have a favorite yoga pose?
Handstands. I love handstands.
Okay. Why is that a funny question? I thought that was like...
nobody has ever asked me that before, and it's kind of delightful to be asked.
Okay. Yeah. How long have you been doing yoga?
Let's see. I started practicing a little bit in college, and then maybe I would say 8 years ago I started practicing more regularly. Pretty much, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. So let's say 8 years, although it's been a little longer.
All right, I'll go with that. And as we're wrapping up, can you tell me what Feminine Chaos is?
Oh, Feminine Chaos is my own podcast, the video cast on the Blogging Heads website. I do it with a wonderful woman named Phoebe Maltz-Bovey, who is a professor in Toronto. And we talk about culture, feminism, digital culture, pop culture, and sometimes politics, just sort of through a feminist or at least a feminine lens.
Yeah, you guys recently did a really cool one about the phrase "Hey guys," and how how people are kind of taking affront because obviously, like, you're both women, so you couldn't go into a room and say "Hey guys," because that's apparently poor taste or poor form.
Well, obviously, people are very split on this, and in this case, actually, people are less split on it than you might expect because the video that made this a topic of conversation was responded to with probably the most widespread mockery and condemnation that I've seen for anything of that ilk on the internet. So it seems like we've actually reached a consensus that "Hey guys" is a regional form of casual address for a mixed group or not mixed group, is gender neutral, and everyone's actually fine with that, which is a good example, actually, of, to kind of bring things full circle, of the internet coalescing in a way that's productive and that allows people to just kind of live their lives, which is something I think we could all use a little more of online.
The discourse worked.
Yes, it did in this case. Good for the discourse.
All right, good for the discourse. Yeah, so the book, as we said, A Trick of Light, is out now. Like, you can buy it in like a physical form, like, or hardcover, I guess now, on the Amazon usual spots, and then of course there's the audio version on Audible. Yeah, and so again, you're hoping, like you said, down the line, maybe somehow to kind of keep this Stan Lee's Alliances universe kind of keep going. So that would be like.
I mean, it's happening. Just kind of keep an eye. You can follow me on Twitter at Kat Rosenfield, and I announce book and other related news there. So when there's something to say about the Alliances sequel, I will be announcing it there. And what's coming up next is New York Comic Con, which happens October 4th through 6th. I and the other guys, Luke and Ryan, will all be there promoting the book. We're going to have a panel, and maybe there will be a little discussion of the sequel then.
Oh, nice. Are you ever interested or trying at this point, I don't know if you're allowed to say, but trying to put out like a nonfiction book of some kind? Your writing's really good.
Oh, thank you. Right now I like journalism, and I'm working on some other fiction, some novels of my own, some works in progress that I've been able to focus on since the release of A Trick of Light. So nonfiction, for now, I think I'll probably be sticking with journalism, but, never say never. I do like to write. I like to write all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. And last question about your writing. Do you use like pen and paper? Do you use a typewriter? Like, what is your approach to writing?
Oh, I use a laptop. I use my computer, and I probably should investigate using one of these typewriters that's like a digital typewriter that's not connected to the internet, because I understand that helps a lot with distraction. But for right now, it's just me and my MacBook.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been writing for years as well, and the last maybe like 2 years or 3 years, I switched and I started just dictating everything by voice into Google Docs, and I found that was a way to kind of get faster and organize my thoughts a little bit better.
Oh, that's fascinating to me. I would never be able to speak the way that I write as easily as it sounds like you're able to. So I'm a little envious.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's cool. Thank you. So thanks again for taking the time. The book, as I said, is out now. It's fantastic. And I should point out, too, that even though we did mention both the characters are 17, this is not a young adult novel. It's like a novel for, like, I don't know, adults or people who are not young adults or whatever they are. Like, it's for grown-up people, people who like adventures, people who like sci-fi, people who like ruckus, those kind of things. So it's a really solid book. You guys did a great job. High five to the team. I hope the panel goes well at New York City Comic Con. So thanks you,
so
Kat.
much for having me. I think, we covered everything.
Okay.
Including yoga.
Yeah.
I can't believe you managed to work yoga into it. So thanks. This was a lot of fun.
That was really cool. I was probably a little bit more fanboyish than I should have been, but I do like Kat's writing. I find that I'm drawn to anybody that clearly has had a cup of tea and kind of chills and is able to kind of think about things, but convey them in a way that comes off simply. But then when you walk away, you're like, wait a minute, that actually had some depth. That had some meat to it, and then you got to work through it a little bit. I like when that happens, and Kat's one of the new writers lately that I've been reading who does a good job of that. She presents things very simply, but then when you actually kind of let it kick around your brain a little bit, you actually find that there's some depth to it. I was super excited to read A Trick of Light. It is very much Stan Lee-ish. You'll definitely see some Stan Lee-ness in the book, so that alone is a lot of fun. There's some Mr. Robot elements in there as well, if that's another show or pop culture reference that you kind of dig. And in terms of like what I was saying with the conversation that I had with Kat, is that this does kind of go full circle, where Stan Lee was kind of known for creating one universe, the Marvel universe, and the story goes, the urban mythology goes, he didn't want to do this whole comic book thing. Stan Lee wanted to write novels. He wanted to do serious work, and instead went off and then created Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and all these incredible characters. And now he gets full circle, gets to do a novel with Kat, and gets to basically write and create another universe, but gets to do the serious work. And it is a serious book, but there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens in it. There's a lot of unique elements as well, things that you would surprise you, and is clearly like setting up things for future books. This is a universe that is well worth exploring, and it is nice to have his work kind of go full circle. As I said in the interview, to just give us from Peter Parker, a bespectacled 15-year-old nerd, to this Kid Cameron in this book who is 17 years old, basically like a Professor X with computers. He's able to mentally kind of connect with them. It's really neat. So yeah, definitely, if you are looking for a new novel, if you're looking for sci-fi, for adventure, for ruckus, any of those kind of things, I would highly recommend you check out this book. The audio book is also really cool because it actually opens with an introduction by Stan Lee. One of the last times you'll probably hear him say, "Welcome, true believers. This is Stan Lee," and that is kind of like, that's already worth the price of admission. It's sad that he was in his 90s, so it was expected that he would eventually go, but it's still a sad passing. We have a handful of pop culture architects, people who really like built up our pop culture. Walt Disney, Jim Henson, Stephen King. Stephen King is still around. He's one of the few pop culture architects we have left. And just recently reminded us of Pennywise with the 2 movies. But Stan Lee as a powerful pop culture architect, his work is so impressive. When you look at that group of architects and you see just the worlds and the universes they built, and the way they all had to collaborate. Like Jim Henson obviously had Frank Oz, others. Stan Lee had Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, variety of collaborators. It's really impressive, and I hope that there's somebody coming up now, somebody who's going to create another universe. I think that would be the real legacy of Stan Lee, is if you could be that inspired and that visionary and able to like big bang a universe into existence. that would be an incredible legacy. And to take that inspiration and that energy and to give it to somebody, to give it to these nerds, new nerds, basically, as a gift. And I think we've kind of seen that with J.K. What's her name? J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter lady. She seems to be coming up and coming and created a whole new universe. And I think this is really exciting. I hope that in the future, this was really supposed to be about the book, but I guess I'm rambling now. But I hope that in the future we eventually do get more pop culture creators, more pop culture architects, people that have this vision. And just like I said, Big Bang, incredible new characters and settings and stories and ruckus. Always, 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 always ruckus. This is a ridiculously long way to say, check out A Trick of Light. It is well worth reading. You will enjoy it. It'll be fun. Check out Kat's work, her writing. It'll be fun. If you want to talk about this episode, if you want to talk about Stan Lee, if you want to talk about Marvel Comics, there's two things. One is I co-host a show called Back Issue Bloodbath. If you search Geek Hard, Back Issue Bloodbath, put it into iTunes, put it into Google, it'll come up. I'm on most of the episodes, not all the episodes. My co-host Andrew needs a break from my puns, which I understand. They're a bit of a... Can't have punishment without puns. But you can check that out. And then as well, I'm on all the socials. The Twitter, the Facebook, and the Instagram. They're all My Pal Sammy. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Stan Lee. And thank you for listening and hanging out. Comics, yo.